Have you ever felt like you don't have enough? Not enough time, not enough talent, not enough resources? Maybe you've looked at other people who seem to be more successful, more gifted, more equipped, and thought, what do I have to offer? But what if I told you that God has placed something valuable inside of you? Something that isn't meant to be hidden, but multiplied. Today we're looking at the parable of talents. And this story isn't about money, it's about faith, obedience, and how we respond to what God has entrusted in us. So let me ask you, are you burying your gifts or are you multiplying them? In Matthew 25:14-30, Jesus tells a story about a master who's going on a journey. But before he leaves, he entrusts his servants with his wealth. To the first servant, he gives 5 talents. To the second, he gives 2 talents. And to the last one, he gives 1 talent. Now, in biblical times, a talent wasn't just a small coin. It was a significant amount of money, worth about 20 years of wages. That's a lot. That means even the servant who received 1 talent was given something incredibly valuable. And the first 2 servants immediately put their talents to work. They invested, they took risks, and they doubled what they were given. But the third servant, he digs a hole in the ground and hides his talent. And when the master returns, he rewards the first 2, saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." But the third servant who hid his talents is rebuked. And the master calls him wicked and lazy and takes his talent away, giving it to the one who had the most. So what does this teach us about God? This parable gives us a glimpse into God's heart. God is a generous giver. The master in the story represents God, and the talents represents the gifts, opportunities, and resources he has given us. God doesn't give equally, but he gives purposely, and he knows what we can handle. God expects us to use what he gives us. The first 2 servants took action immediately. They didn't wait, they didn't hesitate, they didn't doubt. And they knew their master, what he expected, what the master expected. He expected them to grow what they had been given. And God isn't interested in us playing it safe. He wants us to step forward with faith. How many times have you done that? You buried your talent because you were fearful. I know I have. There was many a times in my life that I let fear stand in my way instead of putting a foot forward in faith. And I've done it time and time again. God, he rewards faithfulness, not just results. And notice how the servant with the 2 talents received the same reward as the one with the 5 talents. Why? Because God isn't measuring your success against someone else's. He's looking at what you do with what he has given you. Fear is not an excuse, and I have to keep telling myself that over and over and over. The third servant didn't fall because he lost money. He failed because he let fear control him, like a lot of us do. And when the master asked why he hid his talents, the servant said, "I was afraid." And how often do you let fear keep you from stepping into God's calling? What this teaches us about us. Now, let's bring this parable into our own lives. We all have talents. Some of us have more than others. Some have been given 5, some have been given 2, some have been given 1. But everyone on this earth has been given a talent of something. And maybe your talent is teaching. That's great. Encouraging, leading, creating, serving, music, art, writing, carpentry, baking, taking care of somebody. Maybe it's a passion for business, ministry, whatever it is. God gave it to you for a reason. Excuses will rob us of our purpose. And the third servant had same opportunity as the others, but instead of using what he had, he hid it. And how many of us are hiding our gifts? How many of us are saying things like, I don't have enough experience. I'm not talented enough. What if I fail? And what if you do fail? What if people don't approve? You got to get these excuses. There's so many of them. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for faithfulness. And what we do with little determines what we receive later. And the master said, you have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. God tests us with small responsibilities before giving us greater opportunities. And if you're faithful with what you have now, your job, your family, your finances, God will open doors with greater things. And that's the same with gratitude. The more you're grateful for, the more He will give you. So how do we apply this to our lives every day? So identify your talents. Discernment. Think about it. What has God placed in your heart, in your hands? What are you passionate about? What opportunities have He given you? Stop burying your gifts. What dreams or goals are calling you? Don't put them off. And what are those dreams and goals that you're putting off? Identify them. If fear is holding you back, remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. Take action today. Start small. Use what you have. Trust God with the results. Whether it's stepping into ministry, starting a business, writing a book, serving in your community, whatever it is, don't wait. Trust God with the outcome. The first two servants didn't know if their investments would pay off, but they took the risk in faith. God doesn't expect us to be perfect. He just wants us to be faithful. So imagine standing before God one day, and He looks at you and He smiles and says, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with little, and I will give you much. Enter into my joy. What would it feel like to hear those words? It would feel great. Now imagine the alternative. Imagine realizing you buried your gifts. Let fear hold you back and never stepped into the fullness of what God had for you. Which outcome do you want? Today, make a choice. Identify God-given talents He has given you. Commit to using them, not hiding them. Take one bold step forward, no matter how small, because what you do with God, what God has given you, because what you do with what God has given you will determine what He entrusts in you next. Let's be faithful. Let's be bold. And let's multiply what God has placed in our hands and in our lives. That's your homework for tonight. So, with that today, you do it today. Put one foot in front of the other with faith. And I will see you next time on Pages of Faith.